At first, the darkness does not feel like part of flying. It feels like the absence of everything you were supposed to use. In daylight, distance can still be guessed at. The land gives itself away in shapes and edges. At night, the ground is less a surface than a suspicion. You learn to look differently because looking the old way stops helping. What matters is not whether the aircraft feels ready. It is whether your hands learn what to do before doubt has time to settle in. Nothing arrives one piece at a time. There is no long season of comfort before the demands become real. The war presses against the training from the beginning. The aircraft is still the same aircraft. The coal still comes through the cockpit. The engine still has its own moods. The maps do not become easier because you want them to. You are given instruction, correction, more instruction, and the knowledge that all of it must become usable quickly. There are things you stop asking for. Better weather, better protection, more time. You stop waiting for the conditions to improve and begin learning how to think inside them as they are. The machine cannot be made into a different machine. The night cannot be asked to reveal more than it will reveal. So the work becomes narrower and sharper. Hold the line, judge the distance, learn the sound of the engine, learn the feel of the controls when the aircraft is light and when it is loaded. Learn what the dark hides and what it does not. No one becomes capable here by accident. Skill is built under pressure, and pressure leaves very little room for fantasy. The women who entered these regiments did not move from civilian life into combat readiness by way of long preparation or protected apprenticeship. Their formation was compressed by war. To understand the Night Witch's later effectiveness, it is necessary to understand the speed and severity of that transition.
The women who became known as the Night Witches entered military aviation through a wartime structure that was both exceptional and urgent. Their entry into combat roles followed the creation of women's aviation regiments under Marina Raskova's influence, but the existence of those units did not lessen the pressures placed upon the women inside them. Once formed, the regiments had to turn enthusiasm, prior flying experience, and political opportunity into operational capability at a pace determined not by ideal training conditions, but by the demands of an ongoing war. This compressed transition matters because it changes the listener's sense of what competence meant in this context. These women were not moving into a stable training environment with generous margins for gradual development. They were being drawn into a system in which time was limited, expectations were high, and the consequences of insufficiency were immediate. Some entered with prior aviation backgrounds, others arrived with less practical depth than wartime operations would soon require. What united them was not uniform readiness, but the fact that readiness had to be produced quickly and under pressure. That pressure shaped both skill and mentality. Training in this context was not merely the acquisition of technical procedures, it was the narrowing of attention toward what could actually be controlled. Navigation, aircraft handling, communication, approach discipline, response to poor visibility, and the physical endurance required for repeated flight all had to move from instruction into habit. In conventional telling, wartime training can easily become montage, determination, practice, competence. In this case, that would flatten the reality. The speed of the transition was itself part of the story. These women were not given the luxury of becoming pilots in abstraction. They were becoming operators for a specific kind of work inside a war already underway. That is one reason the regiment's later discipline should not be treated as a natural extension of courage alone. Courage may help someone volunteer. It does not teach night navigation. It does not produce timing. It does not create the kind of consistency necessary for repeated sorties in fragile aircraft. Those capacities had to be built, corrected, and reinforced. The fact that they were built under wartime compression is part of what gives the regiment's later record its weight.